Hi guys, Ben Taylor here from PS Tutorials, and today is Wishlist Wednesday, which means I get to answer one of your questions and turn it into a tutorial. Now today's question comes from Talia in the beautiful warm country of Brazil, and it's such an awesome question. Talia asks, how is it possible to create a Parallax 2.5D image in Photoshop? Most of you probably haven't even heard of this technique, so the best way to explain it to you to start with is to show you what it looks like. Take a look at this. Parallax 2.5D basically means you're animating or you're putting your pictures into motion. It's a really awesome technique that has only come out quite recently, and today I'm going to show you guys how to do it. So without further ado, let's jump into today's tutorial and get started. So this technique you're going to learn in today's tutorial is really cool, guys, and you're going to have great fun with it. By the end of the tutorial, you're going to be able to do this all by yourselves. So the very first step we want to take in this process is to make a selection of the woman and the rock. I'm going to choose the quick selection tool to do this with. And the reason I've chose this, you've guessed it, is because it's great for making quick selections with. Now, sometimes you'll be showing your crosshairs when you're using this tool. Just use caps lock to change this over to the brush. Make sure you're on the plus in the middle and not the minus, because this adds. So just clicking over the woman now, and then clicking over the rock, and you can see I'm adding to the selection. Now the quick selection tool is brilliant for selections like this where you've got a bit of contrast between the foreground and the background that you want to kind of make the selection between. Sometimes though it won't select everything, so you're going to need to zoom in, and then you're going to need to make sure that each area that you need covering is covered. So for instance, you can see this part of the rock here is not kind of covered, so we want to just bring down the brush size and then just click around here and then just select the rock. And then let's just move around and have a look anywhere else. So there's this bit on the trainer here which hasn't been selected, so I'm just going to click around here. And there's this area here which we don't want selected. So to change this, we can come up here and then click on the minus, and this will subtract from the selection. You can also press Alt on your keyboard, which is a shortcut, and that will change it the same. And then when you've got your minus brush selected, all you need to do is just simply paint or click over your area that you want to subtract from the selection, and then it should do a very good job of subtracting it. Okay, let's just zoom in. Got this little bit here which has been a little bit stubborn, so let's just go over this again, making sure we're on the minus. And let's just add back to this bit of rock here where it's subtracted from. Okay, and that's looking pretty good now. I'm quite happy with the selection. The selection doesn't have to be perfect, and that's because the next step that we're going to take is really refining the edge. So if you're wondering how we're going to refine the edge of this selection, then I'm going to show you now. We have an option up the top here called Select and Mask. Now you want to click on this, and this is Photoshop's new go-to selection tool. I say new, it's actually been out for a while now. So with Select and Mask now open, I'm going to choose the Refine Edge brush tool. And this is going to do what it says. It's going to refine the edge so it basically looks better. So I'm just going to simply paint around with my brush size small, covering over the edge like this. And this tool is incredibly accurate, and really you can make the edge look so much better in your selection. So I encourage you, when you actually use Select and Mask, use Refine Edge because it really can make such a difference to your selection. So I'm just painting around the edge of the rock now, and then just refining the edge here, and then we've just got to do the other side as well. So let's start here. Just going to paint around the leg and then up around by the rock again. And then now I'm going to finish just by painting up the leg, the arm, and then back to the top of the head. And then we will have our selection refined. So now we've made the selection and refined it, is we want to have this on its own layer. So to do that, inside Select and Mask, it gives us the option to do this. Down here it says Output To. If I click the drop down, it says New Layer. So click that, press OK, and then this is going to go on to its own layer. So this is great. We've got the woman and the rock on its own layer. We've refined the edge and it's looking really good. But now we've got this on its own layer, we need to go onto the background layer and we need to remove the woman and the rock from this layer. There's a really easy way of doing this in Photoshop, and it involves just making the selection a bit bigger and then filling it in with content aware. So let's show you how to do that now, because it's a really easy technique. So we want to go up to Select at the top. Let's click on Select and then come down to Modify. And finally click on Expand. Now we can expand this by the amount of pixels that we choose. I'm going to choose 20 to be safe and click OK. And watch what happens. Your selection pops up and expands out by 20 pixels. Now this is going to enable us now to then fill this area by pressing Edit, Fill, and then you can see that we have Content Aware selected. This means that Photoshop is going to choose what area to fill it with, and it usually does a great job. So if we click OK now, we're going to see that it's going to fill this area. It might take a little bit of time filling this. When it's finished filling this area, all we want to do is make sure that the top layer is hidden, and then we're going to see how it's filled this area in here. Look at that. It's done a fantastic job of filling it in because there's quite a lot of information under this. Now, of course, it's not going to do this perfect every time. So all we need to do to get rid of these areas is to choose the Spot Healing Brush tool. So to choose the Spot Healing Brush tool, just come over here and then click it from your tools panel. Then simply paint over these areas here, covering them up on your background layer. And then you can get this looking perfect. So you're probably asking the question why we've removed this from the background layer, and also why we've put the woman and the rock on its own layer. This is because we need to animate each layer individually. And of course, if we had both things on one layer, we couldn't do this individually, could we? So I hope that makes sense to you, and I just want to let you know that the further on in this tutorial it goes, the more it's going to come together. You'll feel comfortable with it and it will make sense to you. Now the next step is we need to create a new document, and to do that we want to go up to File here, click on it, press New, and then we want to make sure that the size of the file is 1920 here, width, this is 1980, so change it to 1920 by 1080. As long as you've got these dimensions and it's white, you're good to go. So just click Create. The reason we've created this document is because this is the size of a video or an animation. So because we're creating an animation, we want to make sure our two layers fit within the dimensions we just created on this new document. So all we need to do is shift click the layers together and then basically drop them on top of this document we've created like this. And then you can see that they're inside there. So I'm just going to drag this up to the top and then click back on to this document we've created. At the moment, they're way too big and they don't fit properly. If we press Ctrl T, it will allow us to transform the size of the images. Now at the moment, we can't see the box, the transform box. If we press Ctrl 0, this is a little trick. You can zoom straight to the edges of the transform box like this. This is a really cool technique which I actually taught in another tutorial which I created on our YouTube channel. If you want to check that out, it also tells you about 5 tricks and tips you can learn in Photoshop in just 1 minute. So check that out up here. It should be showing now in the right corner. Okay, so back to this, we want to resize this. So we want to press Alt and Shift on the corner and then simply drag it down until it fits this box here like that. And then just drag it up a little bit and that's about perfect. And then click the tick. So we now have this the right size that we need it for our animations. Now, whenever you're creating an animation in Photoshop, you need to make sure that your layers are smart objects. It's a requirement that Photoshop have. To make it a smart object, all you have to do is right click on the layer. So I'm going to start on this background layer here, right click, and then we can simply go up to Convert to Smart Object. Let's do the same for layer 1. Let's right click on this layer and then press Convert to Smart Object. Great, so both these layers are now ready to go. We can start with the animation. So this is the fun part of the tutorial, guys. So what we need to do is make sure that both of these layers are selected. So shift click them both together and then go up to Window at the top here and then come down to Timeline. This is going to open up this rectangle box here. Just click on Create New Timeline and then you'll see both layers showing here. So this is where the magic is going to happen and where we're going to be able to bring this to life. So what we want to do first is we want to make sure that we just have one of these layers selected. So I'm going to start by selecting layer 1. Simply come down to layer 1 in your timeline and then just select it. And then come across to the drop down on the left hand side and then click it down. You have 3 options. We're going to choose Transform. And you can see that the little yellow keyframe has appeared right at the start here. Now we have our slider at the top. We want to click on this slider and then drag this all the way to the end. So drag it like this to the end of the clip. And now we want to transform the image. So to do that, we're going to press Ctrl T and this is going to bring up our transform box. So press Ctrl T on your keyboard like this. Press Ctrl 0, which we learned earlier in the tutorial, so you can find the edge of the box. And then press Shift and Alt and we're going to make this bigger. And you can see that it's just resizing the background layer like this. And when you've got it where you want it, click the tick. So let's show you what we've done now. Let's drag this slider back slowly and you're going to be able to see how we've animated this background layer. Can you see it moving now? Like this. And this is adding a really cool effect to the one layer. So what we've done is we've animated this bottom layer here now. We now want to move on to the next layer and we want to make this one smaller. So I'm going to click on background copy here and then I'm going to go through the same steps. Click the drop down, click transform, and then you're going to see the yellow keyframe appear again. I'm going to grab the slider and drag it to the end. When we get to the end, this is where we can make our adjustment now. So press Ctrl T on this layer and you can see it's selected and then Shift and Alt. And I'm going to make this one smaller, just a little bit. And I'm going to click the tick here. Now if I drag the slider back, you can see how this is shrinking slightly at the same time the background is growing. And that is really, really cool, folks. Now there's one more step that we're going to take to make this look even more awesome. And that is to use a little video clip that I've downloaded. Now I'm going to make this available for everyone watching on YouTube to be able to download. This will be in the comments area and it'll also be in the description of the video. So what we want to do is make sure that we drag this onto our layers in the other document. So I'm just going to drag this down. I'm then going to make sure that I shift click this and then simply drop it on top of the other two layers at the back here. I'm going to push this back up and then click on my timeline. And you can see that it's now at the top of the stack. So what we want to do is we want to bring this clip down so it matches the length of the others just by dragging it down like that. And we want to convert it to a smart object just by right clicking and pressing on convert smart object. Finally, it's black, so it's going to cover our video clips. So what we want to do is we want to simply go on to something called a screen blend mode. So this is where your blend modes are. Just click on the drop down, go up to screen, and what this is going to do is it's going to brighten the dark areas like this and only make the light areas visible, which happen to be the dust. So we've now got the whole finished product in our timeline. To save this, we need to export it, and we need to export it out as like a video clip. So if you go up to File and then come down to Export, and then you want to come down to Render Video. This is going to render the video for us. We have these options first to name it, so I'm just going to name it Movement, like this. And then we want to choose a preset that we want it to render out as. So if we click the drop down here, I'm going to choose YouTube HD 1080p and then click render. So this is going to render the video now. And depending on the computer you have, it's going to take a kind of variable amount of time. It might take 30 seconds or it might take a few minutes. And when it's finished rendering, you're going to have the saved copy on your folder that you saved it in or exported it to in your computer. Let's now take a look at this amazing effect in Photoshop. I hope you've enjoyed watching this tutorial today, guys, as much as I've enjoyed making it. I'd love to hear what you do with this technique with your images. So if you get time, just drop me a simple message in the comments area of this tutorial, and then I can read it and learn from you guys. And also the people that read the comments can read it as well. And it's like we're all giving back to each other. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, because we like to give you new tutorials every single Monday and Wednesday, which we hope you find helpful. Now, whatever you do today, guys, have an amazing day, and I'll see you all again soon.